Welcome back, everyone, to the show on the Red Spotlight Entertainment Podcast. I'm your host today, Alexis Soto, and I'm joined by Mr. David Francisco from the wonderful deep red state of Arizona. How is Arizona treating you right now, David?
Good.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's interestingly enough, and it hasn't been mentioned because, David used to live from our often talked about hometown of Tatooine. But it's interesting how, you literally hop from one desert to another, because that's where you're at, basically the desert. So, what was interesting though, and you mentioned this, I believe it had to have been either earlier this year or last year. You guys got snow up there, right?
Yeah, we got heavy snow.
What was that like? I mean, I feel like that's weird because it's the desert and you're getting snow.
Mm-hmm. I mean, first seeing it was like magical for me because I've never seen snow fall before. Like I've played in it before, but I've never seen it fall, and it's just like really, really pretty. And then my neighborhood, like it's a really nice neighborhood and all that. You see some fields, some trees, and all that. And when it was covered in snow, it was just a really nice drive back from my work.
No, I'm there with you too because actually last year was my first time. Not only just seeing it, but like experiencing it. Like there's just you're right. It is magical. Watching the snow fall out of the sky, and then of course comes the cold. So there's that. All right. So today we have quite a show for you guys. As usual, we're gonna hit a lot of the hard-hitting news topics that are in the news, as well as a movie review courtesy of David once again. He's actually going to review Black and Blue, which is a film in full transparency I only just heard about a few minutes ago when he first told me he had a review, and like he mentioned the name of the title. I was like, wait, what? That's a movie? Okay. Apparently it has quite a few stars in it, so he'll be talking about the film first of all, as we usually do, and then we're going to get into our news of the week, and there's quite a lot of bit of news, and what seems like what's becoming a weekly thing now is Star Wars is consistently in the news. Aside from of course having a review of the Mandalorian trailer, we gotta also talk about the drama that's been happening with Kathleen Kennedy and Kevin Feige, updates on what's happening there in terms of leadership, as well as Benioff and Weiss being, well, not let go, but leaving the project they were on, and then updates with Rian Johnson. And we're gonna basically kind of take a deep dive into what this mess appears to be and what we think really is happening. And of course, we'll also make sure to acknowledge, as we usually do, how the media is covering this, which I'm never really a fan of, I'll just say. And then, of course, HBO Max had its presentation this week. HBO Max is the upcoming streaming service, the Warner Brothers streaming service that is going to compete directly against Netflix and Disney Plus. It's basically WB's Disney Plus. And they had a lot of announcements. And they have a massive library and some new originals courtesy of Game of Thrones and DC. And then at the end, we'll get into, of course, once again, Disney and the relationship that they're having with, of all people, Fathom Events, now that they own Fox and Fox Films, and how that's going to affect Fathom Events' business going forward. So, all of that and more here on Red Spotlight number 195. So, David, let's go ahead and start off the show with your review of Black and Blue. Still befuddles me to think that it actually exists. I'm sorry, I just haven't heard of it. I mean, everybody's talking about Terminator Dark Fate and how poorly that's doing, how Joker is about to hit $1 billion worldwide, but I've heard next to nothing about this movie. So I guess my first question is, what drew you to go see this?
I like the premise of it. So the story is about a woman. She captures a cop doing something dirty. She catches it on camera, so now it's a race for her to go back to the precinct, but also trying to get away with other dirty cops around. So I thought it was pretty cool, and the movie was fine. There was a few intense moments, obviously. That's what you do, but what I kind of had trouble was connecting with the main character. Just wasn't really grabbing me.
Who was the main character?
It was the
Who was the actor?
It was the female cop, the one that called
Naomi Harris.
Yeah, Naomi Harris.
Naomi Harris. Okay.
Yeah, but the ones that I did like were Tyrese Gibson and Frank Grillo. He was basically the villain of the movie.
Really, they cast Frank Grillo as the villain.
Mm-hmm.
Gee, I haven't seen that before.
Yeah, but he was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then.
By the way, just as a quick aside, have you noticed like typecasting is a bitch as it ever has been in this business for some of these actors? Like, I can name you like, you know what made Captain Marvel a little refreshing was that Ben Mendelsohn wasn't playing the bad guy for a change. You know, and like Toby Jones and like a lot of these actors, like, I mean, they're character actors to begin with, but like, it gets a little exhausting when they play the exact same character. Like, I didn't like Ben Mendelsohn in Ready Player One, mainly because it annoyed me how like close he was to Krennic from Rogue One.
Yeah, he really was.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, almost like it was weird.
It's funny though too, because in Captain Marvel, since he was the good guy, he was like the best part of the movie. Really,
wasn't he?
Yeah.
That was a weird paradigm. You know, I actually quite enjoy Captain Marvel, but mainly because of him. I gotta be honest. That's just kind of like where I'm at with it right now. And that's weird. But I think that should, I feel, go against typecasting in a way, because like I do think Frank Grillo was given the chance to like be a leading man with the Purge movies, right? He wasn't the villain in those movies from what it appeared to me. I didn't see those movies, but in the marketing he wasn't the villain from what I saw.
Oh yeah, he was a bit of a hero in the Purge movies, and I forgot he was in it. Wow.
Because otherwise
about the Purge movies.
Yeah, because otherwise Frank Grillo, I haven't seen him in anything besides the Captain America movies, and I think that's where kind of he was blowing up. And now where he's finding all of this work. But yeah, so interesting. So yeah, I guess the premise is basically kind of like this. I don't want to say time heist, because I mean it's not a time travel movie, but it's like she has this material. And it's basically, the whole movie is basically kind of like what Mario Kart to get to the damn precinct and avoid all these dirty cops, which reminds me a lot of like the Marvel Netflix shows, because that was a damn reoccurring theme in almost all of those series. So tell me more about the film. What would you say were some of the things that didn't land at all? So you already mentioned that the lead character, you had an issue connecting with. What were some noticeable deficiencies or flaws in the film that kind of kept you at arm's length?
Well, it was mostly in the beginning, like once you get the action going and all that. Just some of the action parts didn't also grab my attention. I was just kind of like, okay, we're just moving along. Obviously,
so just bland action pieces.
Yeah, bland action pieces. But it did grab me towards the end, because Tyrese Gibson, he was like the standout for me. He's the one that I actually felt for, because he was a man who got in some trouble, but he's like trying to get himself straight and all that, and he just gets thrown into this situation. So you're kind of like, he's got to get out of this somehow. But then also the movie kind of takes, I wouldn't say a turn, but definitely it went to a direction I didn't think it was going to happen, and that's when it got pretty interesting towards the end. And then you can see it coming just from the trailers that like what this movie's kind of gonna be about, like them doing speeches of doing the right thing and not about like I saw that coming, and like I was waiting for like a speech to come up, and she does, and there's one guy and Tyrese Gibson's character just goes, "Nice speech," like just as a joke. It was funny. So yeah, but I mean, other than that, the movie was fine.
I guess that would, in and of itself, be a critique, that it just wasn't remarkable in any way.
Which sucks, because I really did like the premise from the trailers.
I literally have heard nothing about this movie, so it's yeah, maybe that might be for good reason after all. But anyway, if there's anything to be said about this, is thank you for continuously going to the theater. I know that you do it obviously for you. but you definitely help us filter out some more films, especially a lot of the ones that it seems that we tend to avoid. Like, what were some of the films? Like, we did Mistress of Evil, Dark Phoenix, Stuber. Like, there have been a lot of films that initially Late Night and Booksmart. Some of us have since seen those movies, but yeah, I mean, just thank you for going to see as many movies as possible. I really wish I had that level of commitment to do that, but I can't with some of these movies, you know.
Yeah, no, I've been wanting to go back to the movies because I missed it for a while because I've been spending my money on buying DVDs.
Oh yes, yes, you have.
And I missed a few that I really want to see. Like, I heard like great things on, what is it, Peanut Butter Falcon? Have you heard of it? And then
with Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, I heard great things about it. It's like people's like all-time favorite movies apparently sometimes. And Hustlers is still in the theaters, but I just haven't gone to see it. I want to see it.
Yeah, it's after a while, like you can, when you haven't been to the theaters for some time, you kind of get in a little bit of an itch, you know. Like it's time to go back. I haven't actually been in a theater since Joker. But that, tell me if I'm wrong, but doesn't that feel like a lifetime ago when that movie first came out? Like, it's been a long month, I'll just say, as far as like stories are concerned. So, yeah, it's been that long, and I think I'm gonna go see Doctor Sleep this week with Peter, so that's gonna be fun.
I started reading The Shining.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. I was hoping to do it before the movie, but that's not gonna happen.
Wait, The Shining or Doctor Sleep?
Doctor Sleep. I'm reading The Shining, but I was kind of hoping to like finish it before I watch Doctor Sleep, but I don't think that's gonna happen.
Okay, so you're reading. Have you already read the novel Doctor Sleep?
No.
Okay, so you're reading the Shining novel.
Mm-hmm.
It should be pretty interesting because Doctor Sleep, the film, Mike Flanagan's doing the movie, and of course, as we've talked about on the show, pretty nonstop, he did, of course, the great, as I'm told, Haunting of Hill House on Netflix. And what's going to be the most interesting, and from what I've been reading in the reviews, is that the film successfully captures the essence of Kubrick's version and King's version. And from what I am reading, it's going to be a great sequel, which it's going to be hard to live up to, you know, because The Shining and everything, and like all of the reputation that brings into the picture. But yeah, I'm definitely excited to go back to the theater and watch that movie. Don't know why November when you could have done it in October. Although seeing how Joker is kind of stomping everything out, let's just stop there real quick. I know we mentioned it the last time you and I were doing a show, we talked about how the film was about to pass 700 million. It's now past 900 million since the last time we did a podcast, and now, based on the projections, it's all but guaranteed that it's going to cross that $1 billion mark, which would make it one of 3 movies in history to cross $1 billion with a budget of less than $100 million. And the other 2 films that it has the illustrious company of is Minions from 2015 and Despicable Me 3 from 2017, I believe.
Those reached $1 billion?
Yes, they did. Absolutely, they did. You cannot underestimate the pop culture popularity of the Minions. They're everything. Like, and we have to mention this, and I know that Peter and I throw up in our mouths every time this happens, but whenever there seems to be a trailer for a Illumination film, of course Illumination is the studio that, you know, does these movies, Minions, and they have the fucking Minions like doing their voices. No, literally, I'm not even kidding. Just having the Illumination logo pop up with the Minions doing their little minion, whatever they do, the whole audience erupts in laughter And it's the same thing that happens with every trailer. And then I look over to Peter and he has this look of disgust, absolute disgust. But it's like, it's so weird. There's like this cult of personality. Like I'll go that far when it comes to the Minions. And so it's no surprise that they've made $1 billion. Like at least 2 of those movies have made $1 billion. And I do believe it's been a consistent thing that I think we've talked about this on Fantasy Fair or on this podcast, that a lot of people confuse Minions, which is a Universal property, to be a Disney intellectual property, because that's how big those the Minions are. So it doesn't surprise me in the least that those movies, and of course they're made so cheaply, obviously. So it's yeah. So there's that. And of course, Terminator came out and it bombed. I don't know. At first, the review seemed pretty okay, but then I saw Chris Stuckman's review and he pretty much trashed it. Were you going to go see Terminator Dark Fate?
I want to see it. The reviews are kind of making me stop that. and a part of it though too is because my dad, he's like ginormous fan of Terminator 2. And like, I kind of just don't want to go for his sake, because chances are maybe he won't make it either.
Here's a big fucking warning. And you know what? I don't even care if it's a spoiler alert, because the last movie did so. I know our own Kyle Lara, that the movie he hates the most in this life probably is Terminator Genesis. And a big part of that is because the film essentially undid the events of Judgment Day, the second film in the Terminator series. From what I've been hearing, this movie does the exact same shit again, where it undermines, shall we say, a key aspect of that movie. And I would say, just if it were me in that position, and if I were a big fan of Terminator 2, I probably wouldn't want to approach this movie. So. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if my dad saw Genesis. I think he did, and he thought it was whatever. So maybe he won't hate this one too bad.
Well, if he didn't hate it, maybe he'll like it. But
yeah,
of course.
Because I mean, all he cares about is Arnold Schwarzenegger being a badass. That's all he wants, really.
Well, I do think he was mentioned as being one of the bright spots, as he usually is. I mean, from what I understand, the problem with those movies has never been Arnold. Mm-hmm. Like, it's never been him. It's been everything around him. That's the issue. This wasn't going to be a story, but I don't know if you read the comments, but James Cameron was talking about how he and Tim Miller, who directed this movie, who also directed Deadpool, James Cameron came back to actually, produce this movie, who directed Terminator 2. That both of them were fighting back and forth during the editing process of the movie. And he went so far as to say that in his usual James Cameron way, there was plenty of blood spilt on the cutting room floor. Which, of course, he would say that. And it just seems like a shame, because, like, you have Arnold, you always have Arnold, but you also have Linda Hamilton back. You got James Cameron back, and it just, like, for a while there, it looked like finally they're going to bring a franchise back from the dead, But I just, at a certain point, I feel somebody needs to say maybe the problem is James Cameron. Because he himself just seems indecisive what he wants to do. Like, if he cared that much about this franchise, wouldn't you just put yourself back in the director's chair?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, has Cameron ever made a bad movie? I don't think he has. He's made some of the two biggest films of all time, Titanic and Avatar. Like, Cameron is like a masterwork. And I mean, of course, he's doing like 4 fucking Avatar movies that, I'm sorry, nobody...
He's focusing way too much on that.
No one's going to care about it. That's just the point, right? Like, you think that more people would care about Terminator, that franchise, bringing that one back and doing it well, than whatever he's doing with Avatar.
Mm-hmm. Like, it's okay to take your time with it, but like, you also want to write like 50 other movies. Focus on that. Because wasn't the reason why he's like delaying Avatars because he's like kind of trying to improve the technology of it to kind of like make it better. That's what I heard.
At the very least, with Avatar 2, yeah. I mean, that's what Cameron is all about. He's one that, you know, from what I understand, loves to push the industry forward, loves to push technology forward. And a big selling point of the second Avatar film and probably these new Avatar films is that he is going to push forward technology into the next, I guess, frontier, if you will. That's what he wants to do. But like, I get the sense from the comments that I've read that Cameron really cares about Terminator and that he got in fights with Tim Miller, who is the director. And I feel like if you care that much about this, why don't you just direct the movie yourself? And I feel like Cameron could do that. I mean, Cameron hasn't lost his touch from what I understand. But here we are. And then I also feel bad for Tim Miller because he is a great director. How do I know that? Because we have the first Deadpool film. I personally prefer Deadpool 2, but I think most would regard the first movie as the better one. But the problem was Tim Miller didn't come back to do Deadpool 2 because he was fired. And many suspect that he had a little diva called Ryan Reynolds to deal with on the set of Deadpool 2. And then you think he had a better opportunity with to bring back the Terminator franchise, but then he also had another diva, James Cameron, to fight with. And I'm just like, I really do feel bad for him because like I just wish that people would let him make his movies. Yeah. And so many people just like, they second guess him and they question him. And I just want him to do a movie where he is not having to fight back and forth between people like Reynolds and Cameron. Which in all honesty, I mean, they're not directors of the movie, but like they apparently have more say. Like David Leitch is the director of Deadpool 2, but it really is Ryan. I mean, from what I understand about Deadpool and how those movies are, it's like it seems as if Ryan Reynolds is like the creative force behind those movies more so than anybody else. So I think all around it's just a sad story. And its performance at the box office is beyond pitiful. It couldn't even crack $30 million in its opening weekend. A movie that has a budget of $145 million. It opened to 125 worldwide. It ain't good. It ain't good. So that's your little bit of box office news. So I guess now we can get into Star Wars. Oh God. Oh God. Star Wars.
Which story?
Well,
because there's like 50 of them.
Let's just do Mandalorian right now.
Okay.
Because I think generally that's much more favorable than what we'll get into now. So Mandalorian had its trailer, well, its last, I think, trailer. I had one trailer before, but it had a new trailer come out. I'm sorry if I have like 50 things running in my mind right now. I was just talking to David that I have like, we're scheduling things through January apparently, and on this podcast alone, and it has completely slipped my mind that I guess Disney Plus is pretty much here, right? Do you remember the date when they're going to actually launch?
November 12th.
And that's the day that Mandalorian drops, right? Like the first episode at least, because Mandalorian, unlike, we should know that for most of these streamers are not going to follow the Netflix binge model. They're going to be aired weekly or dropped weekly. And so the first episode of Mandalorian will be up on the 12th of November. Jesus. As far as the launch date for Disney Plus, have you gotten Disney Plus? What's your issue with that?
We haven't gotten it yet. I think we're just gonna wait till it comes out the day of. Yeah, maybe a day or two, because who knows how many people are gonna be like logged into that thing, and if their servers can handle that, then
yeah, you probably want to control that, right? So yeah, so Disney Plus is coming in, so that's going to be. I did not account for the fact that Mandalorian would be dropping this month. That completely, I guess I should tell you how much I don't care about it, but honest to God, it slipped my mind that this was happening already. Because my mind's on like, on so many other different things right now. So I guess this is me kind of realizing that we're going to probably dedicate an episode to Mandalorian. Like whenever David sees it, we'll come back and review it. And again, we got to figure that thing out because we don't even know if we're all going to get a chance to see it, and then we'll do a review on it. But we probably are. I mean, let's just face it. It's the Mandalorian. So the trailer came out, and tell me what you thought of this new trailer.
I'm really interested in this. It looks really good. Like it don't look cheap. Basically, like all the graphics look amazing. I kind of like that it's going for like a Western vibe almost. I've never seen that many Westerns in my life, but that's kind of I'm really interested in this. I don't know how it's gonna be, but
what stood out to you? What are some sequences in the trailer that really like made an impression on you?
Mostly just any action parts. Like you get that robot one that's just kind of like turning its body, and then I know there's one part basically like a Western where he like pulls out his gun, shoots at whatever's behind him, and it's really interesting. And then just the setting. Yeah, the setting looks. Have you heard where it takes place at?
No, I don't really know anything about it. Really,
okay, I don't know either. But yeah, it all looks so pretty.
There was this sequence in the middle of the trailer, and I don't know. Some people have been trying to piece together if that is happening in the timeline that this series. I should mention this series takes place 6 years after Return of the Jedi. There's a sequence with, believe it or not, there's super battle droids, and there's also these massive battleship gun dreadnoughts that were from part of the Confederacy, the Separatist Alliance. And I don't know if that is if somebody stumbled upon an old battalion of battle droids, which wouldn't be anything new. We've seen that before, or if it's a flashback to the Clone Wars. Which also could be interesting, depending on what it is. We should also mention Dave Filoni, who basically made that show, is directing 2 episodes of this series. And based on how Lucasfilm is selling it and how many people close to the team, a lot of people are talking about Filoni more than just as a director. Like apparently he was very much involved in this alongside Jon Favreau. And of course, for those who are not aware, Filoni and Favreau go back. Like Favreau, if you're not aware, played Pre Vizsla, the Death Watch Mandalorian leader in the Clone Wars. Do you remember Pre Vizsla? Pre Vizsla was the guy with the gold hair. Death Watch, the Mandalorians that they teamed up with Maul to overthrow Duchess Satine.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was Jon Favreau who did the voice of that character.
Actually, I just remembered it. I don't know if you heard the show of that one show on Netflix, The Chef. Or...
You mean Jon Favreau's Chef show?
Yeah, Chef show.
Right.
Yeah, Dave Filoni was in an episode, and they talked about him being in the show. Jon
that
Favreau
doesn't surprise me. Maybe I should check that out. I know that everybody was seeing the clip with him and Gwyneth Paltrow, forgetting she was in Spider-Man.
Yeah, no, but you should see that episode. It was really, really interesting.
Yeah. I like Jon Favreau. I haven't been happy with much of his recent work. I guess the most recent one, I should say. But look, I recognize that there is some serious talent all across the board when it comes to this project. And really, there's not much of anything that I can criticize based on what I am seeing as far as how the show looks like, how it's shot, the vibe they're going for, the actors that they got on this show, the talent. I mean, with the direction of Filoni, who I love, and also Jon Favreau, who I like most of his work. And they're definitely going for the type of Star Wars show that most people have been wanting to see for a long time. And I can appreciate that. I can appreciate the fact that Disney, this is going to be their signature series for this streaming service, and it looks as if they definitely dished out the big bucks. I wouldn't say that it's on the scale of a Star Wars movie, but I don't think it's going for that. As you say, it's very much going for this Western style, Western scope kind of project or atmosphere. And I think all the imagery that you're seeing here and the voiceover and just the silhouettes and all the stuff that's happening, it definitely evokes that very, very well. And I probably will enjoy this because this is a very enjoyable looking Star Wars project. The closest I can come to criticizing what I saw in the trailer, but again, it's a trailer, is that it doesn't look like anything more than what Rogue One and Solo brought to the table in terms of like the characters that are offering. But of course, it's not fair until you actually see the series yourself. But I'm not getting any kind of character stuff from these trailers, but it doesn't seem that that's their intention, obviously, with these trailers.
Yeah, no, I mean, you don't really get much at all from the trailer. Like, I still don't know what the story is. You get like almost an understanding of what the characters are going to be. I mean, barely of an understanding, honestly. But it's just, they basically just showed like all the pretty images in this trailer, which, I mean, it works for me. I don't mind that.
I just feel that we'll see, right? I may end up loving this show. I shouldn't rule it out, and it is a live action Star Wars show. But I guess there in and of itself, I do have to be pretty open about some of my feelings, as I've been trying to be anyway lately. It's a live action Star Wars show, but it's like, I don't like this specter in the air that it's the first major Star Wars series, because I feel like, yeah, animation, but it's, to me, just because something is animated doesn't mean it's any less than something that is live action. And as you know, that is a talking point that I have been repeatedly bringing up when we're talking about the Disney live action remakes, and how a lot of people perceive the live action versions to be better just because it's not animated, because it's live action, which I completely reject that notion. But I just honestly, I think what kind of irks me about this is that there's nothing that I see about Mandalorian that I feel warrants the hype. And this is what I mean by that. This particular series is being pointed at by many people in our coveted media as the next big thing in Star Wars that can bring all sides together. Because the narrative out there is Last Jedi splintered the Star Wars fan base in several different directions, and that Mandalorian is going to be that thing that actually brings everybody together on the same side of it. And while I'm not opposed to unity, I just feel like we should be asking for something more than this. Like, this is cool. This looks like an enjoyable ride for sure. And I think it's going to be quality. It looks like quality, and I don't doubt that whatsoever. But I don't want Star Wars to be just that, you know? Like, I would like for something that's more risky, something that's more daring to be embraced by the fans. And I don't see any of that in this. I see quality, but I don't see anything that's, relatively speaking, new. And when I think to a lot of the stuff that Last Jedi did, it irritates me because, you know, Dave Filoni is also somebody who's done wonderful stuff for Star Wars, but he did a lot of weird shit in his animated shows, you know? A lot of stuff that, quite frankly, may not ever work in live action. So he used the medium that he had, the advantage, I would say, that animation has over live action, and he pushed certain things. Obviously, George was a creative behind the scenes in some of those aspects as well. But to me, I'm just finding myself more and more as the odd man out in a way, because like I'm one of those, and I think you are too, like one of those rare breed that loves the stuff that Dave Filoni did, but also loves the stuff that Rian Johnson did. And like, I don't think that's the majority of people. I feel like it's like a one or the other. And like one is seen as like this like inheritor of all things Star Wars. And this other one is seen as this perpetrator that kind of got through the damn border and should have been, what's it called, deported a long time ago. And I couldn't disagree more. But what I like about both of those two individuals is that they did things that were new and interesting and kind of, you know, brought it forward. And not that I don't think that Mandalorian has its place or that it should do what it does. I just don't want Star Wars to just be that. Because if we're looking at what else we're going to get with the shows that we know from Disney Plus as Star Wars is concerned, we have Cassian Andor is coming. Again, I guess that's fun. You have the Obi-Wan show, which I don't think anybody is interested anymore after what happened with Star Wars Rebels, because I guess that was about the only story. They say, we'll see what happens. I don't bemoan anyone for enjoying it, to be clear about that. But I'm like, Rise of Skywalker is something that should be getting all of the hype right now. And the leaks notwithstanding, it should. And to me, that's what's exciting. With Mandalorian, it's cool, but there's nothing about this that gets me genuinely excited about Star Wars. That trailer for Rise of Skywalker, while I know, ultimately speaking, based on what I know, I'm not going to like the movie, I'm going to enjoy it, and I'm going to enjoy it because of what that trailer made me feel. And I didn't get that from The Mandalorian at all. So that's just me. That's the perspective that I have on this. And I'm only just being honest with how I feel about it. But clearly from what is being seen across the board, this is going to be a pretty big thing. And I don't anticipate this being a disaster or bad. This looks good. And I think a lot of people are going to like this show. And yeah, that's just about all I have to say on it. Anything more on it?
I think maybe part of the reason why you're not that excited about it, or just the way you are, because trailers for shows are very different from trailers for movies.
That's true.
Because when you look at all the trailers for shows, like they only ever show you just the first episode. And the first episode is just supposed to grab your attention. That's really all it's going to be. And I don't know. I don't think I've ever heard people talk about a trailer for a show being like, "Oh, this is the greatest thing ever," or just kind of like basically getting the same hype as if any other movie.
Even Game of Thrones trailers weren't that big.
Yeah, I mean all you have to do for that really is just put in the music and add some dragons, and that's it. Yeah, because that's all you want.
Yeah.
I mean, towards the end of Game of Thrones, we were just hyped because it's coming back, and that's it. But I don't know. That could be the reason. None of us won't know what we think about it until it comes out, really.
Absolutely, and we'll make sure to come back and we'll talk about that when it actually airs. Mandalorian on Disney Plus. Moving on to the story that came out this week with Kathleen Kennedy and parting her ways with Benioff and Weiss, who we just mentioned Game of Thrones. Benioff and Weiss were the showrunners for Game of Thrones. Oh boy. Yes. So this is what happened, right? So they parted ways, and we have a lot of different accounts for what happened. So bear with me. We have another one of these deep dives where we got to straighten out some things. So first and foremost, before we actually got any kind of reports about what it was that why Benioff and Weiss left, we had this reporter called Joanna Robinson, who works for Vanity Fair. She was on this Patreon exclusive podcast. And she, on that podcast, made references to the fact that she had been hearing that Benioff and Weiss had decided to leave before their Netflix deal we should also mention they have a big Netflix deal that they're going to go to immediately. That this decision was made in May, and it's that she heard that it was a soft removal. And she also mentioned sources that told her that Feige is reporting directly to Bob Iger on his Star Wars movie. So that's kind of what we heard the next morning. But this is not an official report. And in fact, Miss Robinson here went on the record and clarified that this was not a report for her outlet, Vanity Fair, that this is just stuff that she was hearing, and this is on a podcast. So this should not be taken anyway as an official news story, but it's something to consider. But since that was making the rounds, we had more official stories that were published and put out there. One from Variety, and this is what they say. Variety reports insiders say there's no plan to give Feige a larger role in the Star Wars franchise or Lucasfilm than the movie he's currently developing. That's straight from Variety. Then Hollywood Reporter comes back with, it's unlikely, quote unquote, Feige's Star Wars film will take the December 2022 date, which, if you're not aware, that is when the very next Star Wars movie is scheduled to be released in theaters after Episode 9. It's a little bit of a gap there. And many had speculated that 2022 would be the date for the Benioff and Weiss film or trilogy to be starting off anyway. And some of us had thought that, well, they're going to fast track Kevin Feige's movie, but it appears that is unlikely to happen. Now, as far as what happened directly with Benioff and Weiss, the Hollywood Reporter says, sources tell the Hollywood Reporter that Benioff and Weiss' exit has been brewing since August. Lucasfilm chief Kathleen Kennedy is said to have been unhappy with the Netflix deal that was inked just as they were scheduled to begin working on Star Wars. Kennedy was not convinced the pair, known for focusing on one project at a time, could develop a sci-fi trilogy while overseeing film and TV projects at Netflix. Sources say that as the two shopped for an overall deal over the summer, they told potential suitors that they planned to work on Star Wars concurrently with any projects under their new deal. More from that same report from the Hollywood Reporter. Kennedy, according to a source familiar with her thinking, was nervous. The duo would become the fourth directors to exit a Star Wars project since she took the helm at Lucasfilm. Meanwhile, Benioff and Weiss were also feeling the heat and began having second thoughts about jumping into Star Wars due to what one source described as toxic fandom. To go from Thrones to Star Wars, where fans have bullied actors off social media and taken aim at filmmakers like Johnson, who wants to go through that again? Not them, notes another source with knowledge of Benioff and Weiss' thinking. This was in the life's too short category. Whether forces internal or external were in play, Benioff and Weiss wanted out. It was a hard quit, says an insider. Sources say that Lucasfilm head Kathleen Kennedy is actively looking to enlist new filmmakers. And if anyone's asking, well, what happens to Rian Johnson? Well, I've got some news here. When discussing his new film, Knives Out, with Deadline, Johnson briefly commented on the prospects of his new Star Wars films. Johnson didn't have much to reveal about the project, but commented, "We're still engaged, quote unquote. We're still engaged with Lucasfilm, and we'll wait and see. No updates on it at this moment, but yeah." Okay, that's a lot. And I don't even know what, because there's so many ways to go about this, right? We could talk about Kathleen Kennedy. We can talk about the departure of Benioff and Weiss. We can talk about Rian Johnson's updates or the sources some sources are saying Kevin Feige is reporting to Bob Iger. Some are saying Kevin Feige is not going to take over. I guess we can start off with Benioff and Weiss. That's like the natural place to start off with. And I'm going to go to you, but I'll just say it's probably best they're gone. You know? I'm just going to say it. We had a review on Game of Thrones, and I hadn't listened to it recently, but I'm pretty sure I was overall positive with some major reservations in the finale. A few months later, I revisited certain elements, and it can't not be overstated what an abysmal finale that last season was to that show, and how many things, particularly Benioff and Weiss, failed at doing. And it should not be the bad luck this woman has. God damn it. Like a year ago, you hire these guys, and it's like, once again, it's being hailed as this like wondrous. I know Peter wasn't so hot on it, but a lot of us were like, okay, that's cool. I mean, the Game of Thrones guys.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Like, why not?
And then the last season happened, and then like, oh, fuck me. Like, why does this keep happening to me? And like every time she picks a set of directors, as the report said, things just go south, and man, do they go south pretty quickly. So, David, what do you make of this Benioff and Weiss leaving and everything?
I hated that finale of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
So I was a bit excited when they came onto the Star Wars thing, and then watching that finale, I was like, "Oh, are you guys sure?"
It's like, you sure you don't want to go somewhere else?
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, though, like, who knows? They could have made some. Whoa, they could have made something great. But now I just kind of feel bad for Netflix, because they put in like, what, I could be wrong. That I think they put in like $500 million or something towards them, or $500,000.
I mean, Netflix right now, and as we've been talking about on these shows, they're in a nuclear arms race, and they're buying up talent. I mean, we've mentioned, you know, what the hot thing is right now for these streamers is to go after these big name talents, these content creators. J.J. Abrams just signed a deal with Warner Media to do HBO Max and to do DC, apparently. Ryan Murphy did a $300 million deal with Netflix. Like these streaming wars are no fucking joke, and Benioff and Weiss inked a pretty massive deal with Netflix. And this is not a one-time thing. This is to like produce a series of television shows and movies for these streamers, which I should note from a historical standpoint, we're ever so slowly going back to the golden age of Hollywood, where it would be that a single content creator or an actor was signed exclusively to a single studio. And it seems that we're kind of going back to that in a lot of ways, with these big like talent buyouts, if you will. So that's something to note of. So yeah, they had a massive deal. Continue what you were saying.
I mean, just because they put in like a lot of money with them, but with how Game of Thrones ended, who knows what the heck they're gonna make, and who knows if they're gonna be good.
To be fair though, I do believe we should. I want to say that deal happened, as far as the finalization of that deal happened after that finale aired. So I don't think Netflix was in any position to second guess what they did. Like, Netflix at this point, sometimes I get the impression that quality be damned. Honestly, at this point, it's just about getting the big name talents to do a series of projects, not just one thing, right? So from what I have been hearing and reading, it doesn't seem to me that Netflix cares what happened with that last season of Game of Thrones.
Okay.
So, I mean,
right.
You want them, Netflix, you can have them. That's as far as I'm concerned. You know, go ahead. I mean, and who knows? Maybe they'll do something great on that. And Lord knows Netflix needs the content. That's just where we are right now, you know?
Yeah, no, I know it probably came off this way, but I don't want to say like they're shit writers or anything like that.
Oh, I'm sure Peter would say that, though. Peter would definitely say that. yeah, he didn't care how it comes across of, but like, I'll just say that, yeah, it's interesting. Whatever. It never mattered to me. I guess, in some ways, initially when they were brought on, as far as the aftermath of the finale of Game of Thrones, the one thing that we were kind of rejoicing in was the fact that, these fandom menace people are going to get their actual Last Jedi with with the Benioff and Weiss trilogy, whatever it was, if it ended up being as bad as some people would think. They don't have a good track record when it comes to writing, technically speaking, writing original stuff for them. And we can go into a big rabbit hole about that, but let's just leave it at that. What credence do you think is there to the fact that that they were the ones that left? Because like a lot of the sources are saying that Benioff and Weiss were seriously just not feeling it. Now, I didn't mention it on these sources, but I was hearing other outlets report on the fact that Benioff and Weiss and Kathleen had differing viewpoints on what it was that they had agreed upon, which is like really, again, I don't know how official that is. That's why I didn't include it. But just to be fair, that there were official outlets out there that were reporting that there was a feeling of creative differences yet again. So that could be a part of it. But there is something here to say that perhaps if you're Benioff and Weiss and seeing what happened with Game of Thrones, do you think that it is, because normally I would kind of dismiss this like, okay, that can't be why you left. But the Game of Thrones finale was so hated, and it is. And they got so much shit for that. And no matter how good or bad, or honestly at this point, maybe it doesn't even matter the quality of what they ever would have done with their Star Wars movies, but knowing how Star Wars fans are, I mean, just look at what happened with Rian Johnson and all the stuff that he's been, thrown at it.
But their reason of like leaving because of toxic fandom,
yeah, it doesn't fit, right? Something about it just doesn't feel believable.
It sounds bullshit. It's bullshit for me, honestly, because like you're gonna get hated on either way, especially because it's Benioff and Weissman. You fucked up on Game of Thrones, so of course people are gonna talk shit about your Star Wars movie, and it doesn't matter if like it's like like we've seen it with Last Jedi. Like it doesn't matter if it's some big box office hit, people will still talk.
Or if it's a critical success, if it happens to be a great movie, it doesn't matter. People are going to go after you. Mm-hmm. But then wouldn't that help their case? That okay, well then what's the point of us being in this? If all we're going to end up getting is hate, why would we want to be in this project? I mean, obviously money is a big part of it. But
what's making me hate them more is because when you look at it like that, then anything you'll make, you're just going to want to leave because of it. Whereas, like, if I was given the chance to make a Star Wars movie, knowing with that hate, I'm just going to do whatever the heck I want.
Right, like, because whatever it is,
I constantly hear people going, like, this isn't Star Wars, this is what Star Wars is, this isn't Star Wars, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, it doesn't matter what Star Wars is. George Lucas made the original trilogy, and he made it this one way. And then he made the prequels, and he put it a completely different way. Yeah. Like, the original creator of this franchise wanted to make something different with one trilogy and another. It doesn't matter what Star Wars is. Like, you can say whatever you want, whatever you think Star Wars is. But if you're gonna make it your own. So, like, if you're worried about people talking bad about it, then do whatever you want. Let them talk bad about it, because like every other creator says, as long as one person likes it, it's all worth it.
That's true. Okay, so if it's not that, then do you think that maybe this is being put out there by pro-Kathy sources to kind of ease a little bit of the shit being thrown in her direction? Could that then mean that the sources that say that there were creative differences with Kathleen Kennedy and Benioff and Weiss? What do you think?
It could be because of that. I mean, I don't know. But again, from what happened with The Last Jedi, but also because of since you're ending the Skywalker saga, let them do whatever they want, really.
So what do you think this... How do you think this makes Kathleen look?
It's just bad luck on her, really. It's really not her fault. It is just constant bad luck.
Well, I understand, a lot of the things that people say is that when you sign on to do a project, that you should be in complete agreement about what the creative vision is going to be. And I do understand people that say that, well, when you consistently have the fact that you're on bad terms because of creative differences, that's not a good look. I'm not convinced that's what happened here, though, because the other part of it was that Kathy was just not happy with the fact that Benioff and Weiss were splitting their time between this and Netflix. So I understand that, but I'm having a hard time seeing here what exactly was the thing that made them quit, or if they were fired. But they're just saying that they quit, But then if we're putting this off to the side, and if we're looking at the other stuff that we're hearing in regards to the future of Lucasfilm's leadership, because recently on this show we had been talking about some sources that were saying that Kevin Feige was being brought in to inevitably and eventually replace Kathleen Kennedy as the head of Lucasfilm. We had another one of those voices earlier this week say, as I just said, that Kevin Feige was reporting direct to Bob Iger. And then the very next day, the Hollywood Reporter comes out with this long story saying that that's not true. Variety comes out with this report saying that Feige particularly that Kevin Feige's movie is the extent of which his involvement in Lucasfilm is. And that they stress that he is not going to go any further than that. And you might want to question the timing of that the very next day, that some reporter mentions that some sources were telling her one thing, and the very next day they come out and say the opposite. The timing of that is a little bit suspect, and I'm at a point where I don't really know what to believe.
I don't know. I really don't know, man.
Well, let me ask you this then. Oh, what about? Are you someone that would like to see Kevin Feige replace Kathleen Kennedy? Do you think Kathleen Kennedy should stay on as Lucasfilm? Do you think she's been unfairly treated? Where do you fall on all of that?
I don't think Kevin Feige should replace her. I mean, I think he has enough with Marvel. And then Kathleen, like I said, it's just a string of bad luck. But I mean, from what she's done in the past, and from she did pretty good with JJ and Ryan. It's just a matter of time before she hits something like
and Favreau, the Mandalorian. So there've been wins.
Yeah,
but it just looks bad that so many directors just left. That's just what it comes down to. And I really, partly I have to say maybe it is her, in the sense that she's picking the wrong guys. It seems clearly, and then things fall apart. But again, really, at the end of the day, what matters is the ultimate product. And when you look at it from that perspective, it's been pretty consistent, and it's been very successful as far as the films are concerned, right? That's ultimately what matters, right? Is the bottom line, not so much if people leave here and leave out. And to tell you the truth, as far as the only real loss, and I think big fuck up on her part, was firing Lord and Miller.
Oh my God, yeah.
That was a colossal disaster.
Mm-hmm.
From a creative standpoint and a financial standpoint.
Yeah, and actually, when you think about the movie, I feel like you can see the differences in directors. You can tell which parts they're the ones that filmed this scene, and then which other ones. And I think I can tell which ones the one that were Lord and Miller's, because I was loving whichever ones what I think it was theirs. So that was a really major. I
do believe they still got a writing credit at some point, but I also know that they reshot a lot of the movie. Like maybe a lot of what they had initially shot, they reshot with Ron Howard, in terms of what Lord Miller did. But at the end of the day, with Solo, it was just a safe movie. And what Lord and Miller were going to bring to the movie was to do something new and interesting and fun with it, you know, because like they've never brought a product that wasn't great, you know, that's just kind of what their track record is. And
wait, Lord and Miller?
Yeah. Phil Lord and Chris Miller. Like it's, as far as like their track record, what do we have? We have 21 Jump Street, 22 Jump Street, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, Spider-Man to the Spider-Verse.
Didn't they do Lego Movie?
That's also one of those, yes.
I mean, I don't know if that's bad track record. I really liked it.
I said great.
Oh, you said
I said great. I'm sorry. No. I said Chris. I'm sorry. Maybe I said something wrong. I said that Phil Lord and Chris Miller have never made anything that wasn't great.
Oh, okay.
I am so sorry.
That's my bad right there. Okay, no, yeah. No, they made some great movies, and maybe, I mean, why not ask for them back for a trilogy?
No. Unlike this Benioff and Weiss, like that Lord and Miller thing ended on very bad terms. Like they didn't leave amicably. They were straight up fired. Like I think it was Phil Lord that tweeted out when this news broke. Yep. So,
which is,
yeah.
This is what I'm saying though. Again, though, it's like you want to make a new trilogy. You have the fandom split. Just like get
let
someone
the creators do so. I don't really understand what it was that Kathleen would even have to be opposed to. If you're doing an origin story of the Jedi, as some people were saying, first of all, you got someone better called Rian Johnson, who I think would deliver something truly tremendous when it comes to, I guess, something as the origin of the Jedi. Hey, that's an idea. Hey, but it's just a terrible look, and it makes her look incompetent. And I really feel like she is so viciously attacked, not just by the fandom menace, but by fans like you and me. People really just, it's like this popular thing now to just hate on her, and like to go so far as to say that she is not a fan of this and that she hates Star Wars and Star Wars fans and all this and that there. And it's like, even if she is a diehard fan or not, she's made some great Star Wars content in her tenure. And every decision that she's made, I guarantee you, based on what the end result is looking like, was done to please those fans. Rogue One, Solo, this Mandalorian show were all made for that kind of Star Wars fan. So it's like, you can't say that she's not doing things that'll make these fans happy. So I just don't understand what, and even like when people talk about the success of the movies and even this Mandalorian, people want to minimize her role. They're like, they say like, oh, she's not really involved in the TV in Mandalorian, or she really wasn't involved in Last Jedi or Force Awakens. And it's like, she was on that set, goddammit. Like she was the executive producer. Like she worked alongside Rian Johnson and J.J. Abrams. Like, who are you? Yeah, I really hope she comes back from this, because this is just a terrible PR nightmare. And right now, the company is going through a lot of different, I guess you could say, changes, clearly. Ultimately, what do you think happens with Rian Johnson? Because, you know, the last comments that we reported on, he was like, he made it out to seem as if it was dead. But then he was asked again, and he basically confirmed that they were still in talks. They were still talking about it, which is a lot more than you can say for anything else that's happening right now, as far as future Star Wars films. What do you think what do you think happens to that?
It's hard to say, but I mean, we just gotta be patient with it, really. I'm sure they want to see how Rise of Skywalker goes, and really with Ryan, like, I mean, he has time. So Knives Out coming out, like people are saying like great things about it apparently, and I mean, I don't think there's really a big rush for him to start making a trilogy.
This movie that Benioff and Weiss were doing is moving forward without them, and that Lucasfilm is looking for people to replace them. So whatever story that they had like finalized is moving forward, and they're looking for new people to come in. So that this origin of the Jedi does not seem to be what Rian Johnson was doing, but whatever Rian Johnson wants to do, let him do it. Like, I just feel like we're in this space now. The sequel trilogy is over and done with, or it will be. And if you want to make this franchise live as long as possible, you got to start doing some new stuff. That's just kind of where it all goes back to. And if it's going to be like a, what was it called? A zero-sum game where the fans are always going to react a certain way, fuck it and do whatever you want. I think it's a great attitude to have. Anything else to add on this? Okay, wonderful. Let's move the fuck on. So HBO Max did their launch presentation, and they had a whole bunch of shows that they unveiled, as far as original programming, and then also as far as a lot of shows and movies that they have acquired the rights to. So just as a starters, HBO Max is going to be launching in May of 2020, and it's going to be priced at the higher end of all of these different streamers at $14.99 a month. Compare that to Apple TV Plus, which I don't think anybody really cares about, at $6.99. That's $6.99, and then also Disney Plus at $12.99. I'm sorry, Disney Plus at $4.99, and then Netflix at $12.99. You were gonna say something?
They're just Apple TV. Like, nobody cares about it. Probably not. And it sucks though, because some of the trailers that they put out for their shows, I'm easily entertained. So like, I do find them pretty interesting. And it just sucks. I'm not interested in getting.
Well, it's like service. If we're going to just take a second and compare the signature shows that the streamers have, like, this is going to be the show that defines what we're about, right? So, as we're going to mention, HBO Max is doing this Game of Thrones prequel, The House of the Dragon. Disney Plus is doing The Mandalorian. Apple TV Plus is doing The Morning Show? So, okay, that's a huge step down. Like, look, I wouldn't mind seeing a morning show. It looks pretty entertaining. Yeah. But it's like, that's just not going to be something that's going to excite the same people that Disney Plus and HBO Max are going for. And quite frankly, you have Netflix if you're into that stuff anyway. So, like, but we should mention that a lot of these streamers are doing a lot of what they can do to make this product even free in some instances. Like, if you have, if you buy an Apple product in the next year, you get Apple TV Plus free for a whole year. If you buy Verizon, you get Disney Plus free for a whole year. I think the same thing if you have AT&T, which HBO. So you see how even the conglomerates are like joining forces, and oh god, dystopia is here. So there's that. So let me announce all the different shows that we have, right? So the originals that we're going to get: Adventure Time Distant Lands, which is a new 4-part series following the end of the show. You have Gremlins, Secrets of the Mogwai. The Looney Tunes cartoons are going to come back. There's going to be 80 new shorts, which I find pretty exciting. Sesame Street is going to house new episodes of the show on HBO Max, as far as also a new show with Elmo called The Not Too Late Show with Elmo. So there's that. There's also a DC Superhero High show. Gossip Girl, I guess. That's interesting. Green Lantern, one of the big centerpieces is going to be Green Lantern with Greg Berlanti, who is mostly known for his work on the DC CW shows. Is going to come in and lead that. You also have Tuned Out, which is going to be brought to you by Robert Zemeckis, who directed Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It's going to be a hybrid animation live-action TV show on the Looney Tunes, and I think you get the idea. Boondocks, the season 2 of Doom Patrol is moving from DC Universe to HBO Max exclusively. More on that in a bit. We also have, of course, House of the Dragon, which is the Game of Thrones spinoff that is the big tentpole for this series. And other shows that are going to be included on this, the entire library of HBO. That's just, which is huge for a start. Then you have a lot of the entire library of HBO movies, the entire, oh my God, this is a really long list of shows. But let me see if I can get some big ones out here. The list of series that HBO Max has the exclusive streaming rights for. Here we have Adventure Time, Aqua Teen Hunger Force, Anthony Bourdain Parts Unknown. There's also a new Anthony Bourdain documentary coming to the series, to the streamer. The Big Bang Theory, The Boondocks, Doctor Who. They got a massive deal to have that. The Flintstones, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Friends, The Jetsons, Looney Tunes, the classic Looney Tunes, Powerpuff Girls, Rick and Morty, got the exclusive rights to Rick and Morty, Samurai Jack, Robot Chicken, Sesame Street, The Smurfs, South Park. They had a massive $500 million deal to get the rights to South Park. That's a lot of money. And The West Wing. And classic movies like 2001: A Space Odyssey, Casablanca, Citizen Kane, The Conjuring, The Dark Knight, Hairspray, Gremlins, The Departed, the trilogy of The Lord of the Rings, Magic Mike, The Last Samurai, Scooby-Doo, Risky Business, The Shining, The Shawshank Redemption, Wonder Woman, When Harry Met Sally, Watchmen, Space Jam, and The Wizard of Oz. So you have a variety there. What do you make of the presentation of HBO Max? I'll say it's a pretty massive amount of content.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm excited actually, honestly, for this.
And it's not something that we were expecting to be excited about. But it's a massive, I would say, amount of content. But I think what really shines is the variety of its content, you know?
Yeah, true. I mean, I honestly didn't know what to expect with what we're going to get with HBO Max, but from seeing this list, it's kind of like it's a bit of everything.
And it's quality, too. I think it's kind of brilliant to really... the thing about Warner Brothers is they're not as synonymous as a brand in terms of like household name as far as Disney. As everybody knows Disney as a household name. And they know what's under the Disney umbrella. Not so much with Warner Brothers. But what people do know is HBO. And to use HBO and then call it just HBO Max, I think really just is the perfect name for this. Because you're pretty much promising HBO level quality in a lot of these. Like, for example, the Green Lantern series that's coming by Greg Berlanti. That's a massive step. It makes sense, I guess. Green Lantern had the last movie was terrible, and it ruined the name Green Lantern for, I guess, a decade, literally. And it makes sense to use TV and use the streamer to start off introducing that. But from what I have been hearing, that Green Lantern is being looked as to what Marvel Studios is utilizing in the Disney Plus series to concurrently coincide or connect with the movies that are happening. So there are talks of this Green Lantern not being in the DC CW universe, but actually being an extension of the DC universe we've been seeing on the big screen, which that in and of itself is a big question mark. But okay, what do you make of that?
I mean, I don't know if they should like connect it with the movies. It's just because it makes sense with Disney because they've already established the franchise basically.
Right,
like everyone
right.
knows Marvel. And
who knows what the DC universe even is anymore, you know?
Yeah, that's another thing. It's like they just seem to be doing whatever they want with the movies, not really trying to make a connection at all with them, really. I mean, who knows about the Joker, really? But yeah, I mean, I still don't mind them making a show about it, because I remember when they first wanted to make the reboot, I guess, the Green Lantern movies, they had the idea of making it like a buddy cop movie and all that. So I don't know if they want to go back to that, but I'm excited. They can really do so much with it.
Okay. We should mention the elephant in the room at this point, right? So we just talked about a DC show that's coming on HBO Max. This didn't come as a surprise because we had been talking about this for quite some time, or at least reading about it, but there is something out there in the universe still called DC Universe, which is the DC fan streaming service, of which you yourself, David, are subscribed to. In which, Doom Patrol, Titans, I think Swamp Thing, Harley Quinn, a bunch of other stuff was like announced, I believe, last year when it launched. And it also offered, comic books on the streamer. I'll just say, I don't think you feel very good about the fact that what was seemingly the best show on their Doom Patrol is kind of taking a hike and moving over to HBO Max. What does this make you think about DC Universe? All of these announcements.
Oh man. I mean, it did make me think that they're probably going to get rid of DC Universe. Chances are. And I mean, like I said in the group chat, if it's disappearing, then it was a pretty good run. Like I loved Doom Patrol, and I'm actually really excited for it being on HBO Max, because they're gonna get probably like a bigger budget, probably go even bigger, and I don't know how they can go bigger with it already, but yeah. And I did enjoy reading some of the comics that were in their library, and however, I'm still gonna be subscribed to it. However long I still have it, because I really want to rewatch some other cartoon shows that they have in there, some of their DC animated films.
Which you would hope that whenever the day comes that it's shut down, that library just gets absorbed into HBO Max.
Hopefully.
I think it would. I don't know about the comic books, but as far as the animated shows and the movies, I would assume they would all be absorbed into it. Can you tell me how much did you pay for your? I think you did a year-long subscription. Yeah. How much did you pay?
75 or 76 or something like that.
Okay. And when does it expire?
This month.
Are you going to renew it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm going to do the year one again or make it monthly, but
might want to make it monthly. Well, depending on, I don't know how much longer it lasts, but they could announce any day now that it's gone. Yeah. Another part of this HBO Max is that if you're already subscribed to HBO Now, it costs the exact same thing as HBO Max. And because of that, it's like, I don't think it's something just because you're subscribed to HBO Now does not mean that you're just automatically going to get HBO Max. I think that may come with time, but I think what they want to do, the strategy is they want people to do that themselves. Instead of having this like pushed on them, which, I mean, I wouldn't mind, but some people would. I think their mindset as businessmen is like they want the consumers to understand that HBO Max is more than what they're getting at the same price. And so they want people to, en masse, just migrate from HBO Now to HBO Max. And I guess in some way that's kind of their way of like creating word of mouth or creating some kind of hype. But don't sleep on HBO Max, because what they have in this arsenal, and I have to say it's a true arsenal, is they have the variety that Disney won't. And they also are utilizing their classics that Disney is not. And what I mean by classics, I mean the Fox buyout in which they acquired the classic Fox films. They're not going to be on Disney Plus, and they're not going to be on Hulu, which is also owned by Disney. But the Warner Brothers Criterion Collection is going to be on HBO Max. And so they understand the history of their studio, unlike Disney, who is literally locking them up. Locking up I'm sorry, I just thought of Trump. That are locking up the movies up in, and I guess what you would consider what's left of the Disney vault. And to kind of transition into our last story here about Disney, an update that we had talked about previously, is that Fathom Events, we all know of Fathom Events, you know, they do these wonderful screenings of either TV shows or old movies, and we get to see them come back to life on the big screen. Well, as a result of this Disney purge, if you will, of all of their Fox films, and I'm not aware if this screening has already happened. It may have already happened by the time this podcast is uploaded, but at the time of this, the upcoming screening of Alien is set to be the final Fox movie that gets to have a Fathom Events screening. And yeah, it's sad. I just don't understand why, though. I don't understand why Disney isn't utilizing this library, because one would think that was a big reason why they even bought Fox in the first place, was to weaponize their streaming services with this massive amount of content, the same kind of content in volume that we're seeing from HBO Max. They're not utilizing on Hulu or Disney Plus. David, why do you think that is? Do you think they're saving it for something, or what is going on here?
I have no idea.
That seems to be the answer of the night, right? It's just a mystery.
Yeah, this whole thing. But it's just really like a waste, honestly, to just kind of keep them away from everyone, because everyone still wants to see these things. Everyone wants to take someone to see these movies, and
it's a whole movie studio's worth of movies. Mm-hmm. And they dropped $74 billion. $74 billion to just have it sit in a vault? What? I don't get it. I really don't.
It's just sad.
Right?
That was just the first thing that popped in my head.
It's depressing.
Mm-hmm.
And like we're already seeing how it's affecting the future of the studio going forward, because I want to bring you back a few months when we had a podcast about the reshuffling about the future films, the future Fox films under Disney. Alan Horn said recently that the Fox Searchlight films are still going to be released theatrically, which then rung a bell like, wait, what about the other Fox movies that are not Fox Searchlight? Are you saying they're not going to go to theaters? Okay. But we're going to get a lot less movies, and they're now going to go through Alan Horn, and it ain't looking good for the future of the studio. It might, as we said in some podcasts months back, as some sources were saying that they wouldn't be surprised that if the Fox name was just completely erased, in that Disney just absorbs all of what Fox gave them into their normal Walt Disney Studios, and then it just sits there. And then that's it. And that's the end of Fox. That's the last nail in the coffin for Fox. And that is just fucking depressing.
Mm-hmm.
And as usual, we get to end our podcasts on such a downer. That's wonderful. Man, I'm depressed. God. All right. So, is there anything else you want to add before we end this show?
Nah.
That's great. That's great because I'm pretty tired and wow, that was fun. Not really. Thank you all for listening. I want to remind you that we release our podcasts every single Sundays, anywhere you listen to podcasts, whether it be on Apple or Spotify or even on YouTube now. And I also want to remind you that the Fantasy Fair is doing their series of Once Upon a Retrospects with the Star Wars franchise. I will actually be on the next episode with Revenge of the Sith is the next movie that they're going to be doing. And as far as Red Spotlight this month, we have our upcoming Scorsese series that we're still working on. We have Dr. Sleep, Knives Out, The Irishman, Frozen 2, The Mandalorian, seemingly all coming this very month. So stay tuned, keep it here. Thank you, David, for being with me today. And until next time, stay under the spotlight and bye-bye.